Hello friends, and welcome back to another episode of Spilling Studio. My name is Sam, and doing a bunch of practice questions was the biggest help for me when I was studying for my exams. So each week I create 7 ARE practice questions designed to help you pass your next exam. There's one question per exam topic and a bonus question at the end, so stick around. Let's get started with practice management. An architect has specified 12-inch by 12-inch carpet tile in pattern 5089 Stardust and color Ocean Breeze with approved equals. The contractor reaches out to a local supplier and discovers the tile has a 20-week lead time. In order to stay on schedule, the tile can only have a 6-week lead time. The contractor wishes to propose a different carpet tile. When must this request be submitted to the architect? While preparing submittals, before submitting the bid, once the contract has been awarded to the contractor and the tile subcontractor is under contract, at the pre-construction meeting. Feel free to pause here to answer. The answer is before submitting the bid. Since the specification includes the phrase or approved equal, the contractor is able to submit a different carpet tile for review that will be delivered to the site within a time frame that fits the project schedule. So when does the contractor submit this request? Before the bids are due. And the contractor must submit it early enough to give the architect time to review. So the contractor can't submit it the day of or the day before because the architect needs time to review the proposal and make sure it meets the design intent, performance criteria, and material requirements. This also means that the contractor must submit technical data with the proposal so the architect can compare the two materials. Now on to project management. An architect is working on a new community center for the city commissioner. The architect and the commissioner have an agreement based on AIA document B101. In which scenario would the architect be entitled to an adjustment to the contracted project schedule and/or fees? Select all that apply. The owner decides to select a contractor for the project instead of sending it out for bids. The architect's consultants failed to coordinate electrical and audiovisual requirements for the theater room. The architect is asked to select artwork for the gallery since the city's art director quit. The city commissioner was campaigning for 2 months and could not be contacted for project-related questions and decisions. The architect is required to attend pre-application meetings due to required variance for the height of the center, or a new parking code regulation was approved once the drawings were completed and the architect must revise the parking layout. Pause here to answer. And the answer is C, D, and F. AIA document B101 outlines changes in services and situations that the architect is able to request additional time and/or compensation. Asking the architect to select artwork for the project is not part of the basic services in B101. Artwork would be considered furnishings in this document. This could have been included in the contract, but the question said the architect was already working on the design and the city's art director quit during this. So selecting artwork was not included in the contract and therefore would be grounds for additional compensation and/or time. If the owner delays the project by not making timely decisions, then the architect may request a time extension and/or additional fees. The owner has to be able to provide direction and decisions on a project. And lastly, the release of new regulations that requires updates to the project documents allow the architect to request additional time and/or fees to cover the cost of those changes. Next up is programming and analysis. You are an architect tasked with designing a new community center in an urban area known for its commitment to environmental sustainability. The project aims to serve as a model of green design, integrating renewable energy sources and eco-friendly materials. As part of the design process, you need to select construction materials that align with the project's sustainability goals while also considering budget constraints. Which of the following strategies would best help achieve the project's sustainability objectives while also considering budget limitations? Investing in cutting-edge sustainable materials, even if they come with a higher initial cost, to showcase the center's commitment to environmental stewardship. Balancing cost and sustainability by selecting locally sourced materials with moderate recycled content, minimizing transportation emissions, and supporting the regional economy. implementing advanced green technologies such as geothermal heating and cooling systems to maximize energy efficiency and reduce long-term operational costs. Prioritizing cost savings by optimizing for conventional materials and construction methods with the intention of exploring sustainable upgrades in future renovations. Pause to answer. And the correct answer is balancing cost and sustainability by selecting locally sourced materials with moderate recycled content, minimizing transportation emissions, and supporting the regional economy. Our correct answer mentions a lot of good things, like being locally sourced, which reduces transportation emissions, which also minimizes the project's carbon footprint, and it helps local suppliers. It also mentions using recycled content, which promotes resource conservation and reduces waste. And the biggest part is that it mentions balancing cost and sustainability, which was the main project goal. It is a well-rounded strategy which makes it the most suitable choice for achieving sustainability goals within budget constraints for the community center project. Our other options have words in them that hint that they're expensive, like cutting edge and advanced. Cutting edge sustainable materials typically come with a higher initial cost, which could potentially strain the project's budget. Advanced green technologies like geothermal heating and cooling systems often require substantial upfront investments. Given the budget constraints mentioned in this scenario, this option would not be the best choice. And finally, prioritizing cost savings was important in this scenario, but this option completely ignores the desire to incorporate sustainable features. Therefore, this would not be the best option. Now on to project planning. According to the ADA standards for accessible design, what should the missing measurement be? 24 inches, 32 inches, 36, 48, or 60 inches? Pause here to answer. And the correct answer is 48 inches. This comes straight from the International Building Code Chapter 4 Accessible Routes. Anytime you have a door in series, so like a vestibule, you need a clearance of 48 inches or 4 feet. Notice that all of these are 48 inches and all of them are from door leaf ends or the wall. So that makes this one a lot easier to remember. For both project planning and project development, you're going to need to know some of the standard ADA clearances like the width of an accessible path, slope ramps, turning clearances, parking space dimensions, and a few others. When I was studying, I tried to find common clear distances and group those diagrams together in my head when I was studying. I have a link in the description to Chapter 4 Accessible Routes so you can check it out. I know it's a little overwhelming with how many different clearances and standards there are for accessibility, but focus on the main ones that would be involved with space planning. That's usually what you're going to be asked about in the exams. A brief pause here to remind you that I post new questions every week, so please hit that subscribe button to make sure you don't miss out on a video. It also really helps me out, so thank you. Next up is project development. An architect is working on the life safety plan for a library. Based on the floor plan in Table 1004 from the IBC below, how many occupants are allowed in room 104? 3, 10, 25, 34, or 50? Pause to answer. And the correct answer is 10. This type of question where you have to use a table or reference a floor plan, you are sure to get on one of your exams, either in project planning or project development. Usually the math is simple, but you need to make sure you're pulling the right information from the tables or documents provided. So we can see room 104 is 500 square feet and it's labeled a reading room, which from our table allows 50 square feet net per occupant. Now all we need to do is divide our room area by space per occupant and we get 10 occupants. Super simple, but it can easily be messed up if you're pulling the wrong numbers. If you come to an answer that doesn't feel right or the occupant count doesn't seem to make sense based on what the room type is, then double check your numbers that you pulled from the reference documents. On one of my exams, I was on a case study question which had 5 reference documents, and I had to pull numbers and do some simple math, but I was getting a decimal number, which didn't make sense for the question that I was answering. So I reread the question, looked at the references again, and realized I pulled numbers from the wrong document. So learn from me. Hopefully this will help you get a few more right on your next test. Next up is construction evaluation. An architect has prepared an addenda. When is this issued? Before bids are due? Once the contract is awarded? Before construction starts? Or during construction? Pause to answer. And the answer is before bids are due. An architect may issue an addendum during the bidding phase or after the issuance of the initial bid documents, but before the bid deadline. The purpose of issuing an addendum is to provide clarification, corrections, or additional information to bidders in response to inquiries or discrepancies discovered during the bidding process. In all cases, the architect must ensure that all bidders receive the addendum in a timely manner to allow them to adjust their bids accordingly. Additionally, the architect must document the issuance of the addendum and ensure it's properly incorporated into the bid documents to avoid any misunderstandings or disputes during the bidding process and once the project goes into construction. You want to make sure everybody has the most up-to-date drawings, specification, and other project documents. Wrapping up with our bonus question, which is, an architect is designing a new office building and is specifying an upfeed water supply system. What is the maximum height the building can be? 10 to 20 feet, 30 to 40 feet, 40 to 60 feet, or 60 to 80 feet? Pause here to answer. And the correct answer is 40 to 60 feet. Upfeed water supply systems work in buildings of about 40 to 60 feet in height. Upfeed systems do exactly what they sound like. It pumps water up. There is some variation in height since it depends on losses due to static head and pressure at the water main, which is typically around 40 to 80 psi. Static head is the amount of pressure needed to lift water up the piping system in the building. You need 0.433 psi to lift water 1 foot. That's an important number to remember. The inverse of this is for every foot in building height, 0.433 psi is lost. Now that we know this, we take the height of the building and multiply it by the static head and subtract that from the pressure at the building main. Why would you multiply by the building height? We do this to make sure that there's enough pressure at the top floor to operate the fixtures on that level. These types of calculations help the designers make sure that they are using the appropriate system for the project. That's our questions for this week. Remember to check out the description for links to some of the AIA contracts covered in this video. I've also linked some of my favorite study books, so go check those out. Let me know in the comments what subject areas you're struggling with, and I'll do my best to cover it in the next video. Thank you all for joining. Please subscribe, and good luck on your next exam. You got this.